Hello, and welcome back to the Wisdom Warhammer channel. And today, we're going to be going over the lessons we can learn from Leman Russ, the Wolf King, and Primarch of the Space Wolves Legion. We'll be going over his time on Fenris, and him being found by the Emperor, and then his time during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy. Then we will finish up with the lessons we can learn from Leman and talk about what he probably has been doing for the past 10,000 years. Side note, I do not own any artwork in the video, and all things Warhammer is under the ownership of Games Workshop and Black Library, so go support them. Now, let's get the video started, shall we? Like his brothers, Leman was thrown into the warp and landed on the icy death world named Fenris, which was basically Scandinavia during the Viking Age, but 10 times worse. Leman landed in the wilderness similar to the lion, but without the corrupted beast of Caliban, and alone. He was found by a Thunderwolf mother and her cubs, and with the mother's maternal care, she took Leman as one of her own and raised him like a Thunderwolf. As time went on, Leman cared for his wolf mother and his siblings, and they did as well, but it eventually came to an end. Fenrisian hunters from the local tribe killed the Thunderwolf mother, and Leman killed the hunters alongside his pack brothers, Greki and Freki. But during the fight, one of the hunters saw what Leman was, and he told his fellow tribesmen to lower the blades, and not knowing what to do, they brought Leman and his two pack brothers to King Thengir of the Russ tribe. The king saw the potential of the young man, and he helped him become like a tribesman. Leman was taught how to fight with the primitive weapons of axes and swords, and he was taught how to speak, write, and go to war. Leman won thousands of battles on Fenris and became king after King Thengir died, and his legend on Fenris became known within the tribes. The fleets of the Great Crusade neared the Death World, and when the Emperor learned the legend of Leman Russ, the Wolf King, he knew it was one of his sons. The Emperor alone went to see his son disguised as a wanderer cloaked in a dark hood and robe. He met with the Wolf King during a feast held by the Russ tribe. The Emperor knew that Leman would never submit to the master of mankind easily, and him being confident in his power challenged Leman, and the Wolf King agreed. There were 3 challenges, which were an eating, drinking, and fighting challenge. The Emperor lost the first and second challenges, but for the final challenge, he was irritated, so he just knocked out the Wolf King with one punch of his power fist. When Leman awoke, he swore fealty to the master of mankind, and the Emperor took Russ with him to Terra. Horus met the Wolf King and thought he was a barbarian, but the Emperor told Horus that was what Leman was intended to be. The Emperor and Horus taught Russ the ways of war and the Imperium, the culture, imperial truth, and after he finished his learning, he was given his battle plate and the Frostblade Mjolnir, which had the teeth of the ice-cracking Gorman Jarl. The last gift he was given was the 6th Legion, the Space Wolves, and they began to conquer all the planets they came across. Leman and his Space Wolves fought the Drangdang alongside the Dark Angels through most of the campaigns against the Rangdang, but lost a lot of Space Marines. But one event that involved the Space Wolves and World Eaters called the Night of the Wolf. Leman was sent by the Emperor to tell his brother Angron to stop the implantation of butcher's nails in his legion, but Angron did not care. A battle ensued with the World Eaters charging the Space Wolves and killed a lot of the 6th Legion. But Angron was separated from his sons and was trapped into a kill box with the wolves pointing bolters at the Red Angel. After a short stare down, the Wolf King called a retreat. Leman and his legion just went on with their conquest and during a joint campaign with the Lion and Dark Angel's legion on Dulin. But at the end of the battle, Leman and the Lion brawled and Leman was knocked out by his brother. Some time passed after Dulin. Leman and the Space Wolves were called to bring Magnus and chains to Terra. Leman was on his way to Prospero, and the War Master Horus intercepted Leman and tricked him into killing Magnus and his legion alongside the people of Prospero. But the Thousand Sons did not go down without a fight, but eventually Leman fought his brother while the Space Wolves and Thousand Sons Legion watched. Leman won the fight and broke his brother's spine, but Magnus made a deal with Tzeentch and was transported away alongside his legion. After the destruction of Prospero, Leman and his battered legion arrived in the Alexis Nebula. When they arrived, they encountered a fleet of the Alpha Legion with the twin Primarchs Alpharis and Omegon. The Alpha Legion was ordered to hold the Space Wolves away from Terra, and it got bad for the Space Wolves and asked for aid from Jagatai Khan and his White Scars, but the Khan did not know what was going on and went to Prospero for answers. As the two legions fought in void combat, Alfarius teleported aboard Russ's flagship disguised as one of his Terminator elite. The Alpha Legion were on the verge of victory until a small fleet of Dark Angels arrived to assist the Space Wolves and the Wolf King, cementing the loyalty of the First Legion. Leman did arrive at Terra after some time, but he eventually left again to find and attempt to kill Horus. But before he left to fight Horus, he went back to Fenris to find a way to kill the War Master. When he arrived at Fenris, he dove into the Underverse for a way to kill Horus. But during the journey in the Underverse, Leman was told the truth about the existence and purpose of the Primarchs. Leman then found out that the spear that the Emperor gave him would be able to kill Horus. After the journey, Leman attempted to assassinate Horus. He failed, and then was reunited with his brother Korax, but in a comatose state. When Leman awoke, he and his remaining Space Marines, as well as the Korax and his legion, returned to Deliverance. I waited for something to happen, but then the Dark Angels arrived with Lionel Johnson. The three brothers talked, the Space Wolves and Dark Angels force and their Primarchs, as well as a small force of Raven Guard, left for Terra. They arrived at Terra, and hearing that Horus and Sanguinius were dead, alongside the wounding of the Emperor and the entombment of the Emperor on the Golden Throne. The Wolf King fell into a depression, and the Lion was screaming in the halls of the Imperial Palace looking for Leman. The Lion found his brother and told him that they had to finish what they started on Dulin, and Leman refused because he was tired of fighting his brothers and didn't have any fight with him at the time. But Leman allowed the Lion to stab his brother, and both became friendly to each other. Leman recovered and went back to Fenris. Leman didn't like the Codex Astartes and the division of the legions into chapters, but he was still grieving and went along with it. After 2 Terran centuries passed, the Space Wolves had a feast. Leman quieted the room, ready to speak to his sons. When he was about to start, Leman saw a vision, and he fell to his knees. And he knew what must be done, and gathered his closest wolf guard except for Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and went to the Eye of Terra for an unknown reason. After this, his sons began doing the great hunts, which involved the rune priest getting a vision of a place, and the wolves following the visions, hoping to find their gene father. The rumors say that he and his personal guard are searching for the Tree of Life in the Warp. Or Leman is disguised, wandering among humanity, protecting the Imperium until he is needed to lead his sons once more for the wolf time. But I personally think that he is still in the Warp with his personal guard hunting for the Tree of Life. And when he comes back, he'll be like a wolf and Odin-like figure. Now we are done with the lore section, and now we're going to go into the lessons we can learn from the Wolf King, Leman Russ. The first lesson we can learn from Leman Russ is that being impulsive will lead to burnout and consequences for you. Being impulsive is doing something without forethought. For example, when Leman, the Lion, and the legions fought on Dulin, and when the battle started, instead of following the plan that both Leman and the Lion agreed upon, Leman rushed into combat with his legion at his back and not assisting the Dark Angels and the Lion. This impulsive choice resulted in an unnecessary amount of dead Space Wolves, but with the First Legion following the plan and being able to capture strategic points of Dulin. When the Lion killed the leader of the Dulian people, Leman found his brother standing over the dead leader, even though the Lion agreed to have Leman kill the leader for his saga. But due to Leman's impulsive nature, he missed it. But the Lion did try to contact him before the Lion arrived in the throne room. Seeing this, Leman, instead of listening to his brother about what happened, he marched right up to the Lion and hit him in the chest, and the two brothers fought for 1 day and 1 night, but in the end, Leman realized his impulsive choice and paid for it with his brother knocking him out. So the problem with being impulsive is that it will eventually land you in deep trouble that you can't get out of, and if you are lucky, it will lead you to being burnt out. Also, being impulsive in any relationship will lead down a dark path, which includes a lack of trust and can result in acting out violently and overreacting in arguments with your spouse or family/friend. One thing with being impulsive will eventually lead to regret and becoming a shadow of what you can be. When the Horus Heresy ended, Leman had an interesting reaction, and instead of being his usual self, the barbaric Wolf King of Fenris, Leman was in a state of quiet depression and tired of fighting his brothers. He just walked around the imperial palace in his robes in silent depression. When he was walking, he encountered the lion. The lion was grieving and involved him yelling through the halls in the imperial palace, searching for Leman, and he found his brother. He told his brother that they had to finish their duel on Duelin, which meant that he wanted Leman to fight him and hopefully kill him, or he kills Leman and someone kills him. Leman told his brother that he left the grudge on Duelin, and he eventually realized what he did and moved on. So the lesson here is to not be impulsive, and if you are, slow down and look at what consequences that can happen as a result of those impulsive choices. One thing that I do to prevent me from doing something impulsive is to think slowly and clearly and weigh the pros and cons of the choice. Also, having boundaries personally and in any other aspects of life can help tame impulsive choices. Also, I would see if you can get professional help if you are able to. The next thing we can learn from Leman Russ is to not be arrogant, and arrogance is defined as having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's importance or abilities. Leman is very arrogant, and it shows multiple times during the Great Crusade and during most of the Horus Heresy. An example of his arrogance was when he boasted about his fighting skill, and he is a good fighter, but not the best. This happened when he fought the lion. He did catch his brother off guard for a bit, but he eventually got knocked out by the lion. Another example of him being arrogant is when he thought he would beat Angron and his world leaders, but he and his legion got bodied by the 12th Legion. Leman got bodied by his brother, but eventually he fell into a Space Wolf firing squad, but with Leman losing a lot of Space Marines, he pulled away from the planet. So that goes to show that Leman's arrogance costs him an unnecessary amount of resources that he could have put in future campaigns. But his character arc during the Horus Heresy makes him lose some of that arrogance and makes him less savage and more of the protector of the Imperial citizens, and his sons go through the change as well. But the lesson from this is to show that arrogance is not good, but a better trait to have is confidence. A couple of ways to show confidence is to identify your strengths and believe your goals and cause. Also, remember it is okay to make mistakes and accept feedback when it is given. So instead of having arrogance, have confidence. But the difference between the two traits is that having confidence has humility. We have now gotten to the end of the video on the lessons from Leman Russ. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, share it with someone who would like this. If you are new to the channel and would like to see more, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be notified when a new video comes out. In the next video, we are going to be going over the lessons from Ragnar Blackmane. I hope you guys have a good day and may the Wolf King hunt alongside you. This is Wisdom of Warhammer, signing off.